All right, hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Racers News Network Live. Pete will not be joining us tonight. He is getting ready to hopefully get to Florida for a couple days to do some work on his house down there. I say hopefully because, as everybody knows, the government shut down, TSA, air traffic controllers. Hopefully, it doesn't mess with their flight to get there and back. But so it's going to be just me. We have joining us tonight from New England Dragway. Going to learn a little bit more about how he got into the sport of drag racing, up to where he is now as an employee at New England Dragway in Epping. Of course, I'm talking about Seth Noble. Good evening, Seth, and welcome.
Good evening.
How are you, my friend?
I'm doing pretty good.
Outstanding. So let's dive right into it. Obviously, you're what are you, about 20, 22 years old?
17.
Really?
Yep.
I honest to God would have never guessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Some people, it's either sometimes it's been, either I'm 14 years old or I'm a girl. I've heard that before. I walk down from the tower and
I don't
people
mean
have been like, hey,
I don't mean to laugh at that, but that is kind of funny.
it's hilarious. I love it. It's honestly, especially a couple of years ago, it used to be a lot, it used to be pretty funny. So I'd walk down from the tower and people would be like, hey, who's that girl up there? She's really good.
You're like, dude, I'm not a girl.
I would just feel like I would just stick my hand up and be like, "Hey, how you doing?" They'd be like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "No, I find it funny. It's hilarious."
Right? Oh,
Yeah,
that's awful, but yet funny all at the same time.
yeah.
So so obviously New England Dragway is your home track. Um, how did you first get involved in the sport of drag racing?
Uh, as many people do, my dad, he always, since his probably 20s, been racing. Whatever he could, race in. So, it's kind of was born into it. I've probably been going to New England since I was, X amount of months old. So, it's kind of engraved in my brain from day one.
Gotcha. Now, growing up at the racetrack, was this a weekly thing or just like a once in a great while you guys went? Or was it your lifestyle growing up at the racetrack?
We spent a lot of time there. Uh, obviously more so when I started racing in juniors, but my dad used to have a nitro Harley, so he would try and go as much as he could there to test it to try and get his license or, to test if he had changed something. So I spent, even if we didn't go there to race, we went there a lot just to be around the people that, we know.
Very cool. So obviously, like you said, you ran juniors, so you fell into it back when it was still you had to be a little bit older than what you have to be now. What was it like getting into and getting ready to run a junior?
It's pretty interesting. I literally went into it like right as I think the year before I started running one, they changed the age from I think it was like what, 8 to being 5 years old to get your license and 6 to compete. And at the time I was 6 or 7 years old, so I was able to get in one. And as soon as I saw that rule change, I was like, Dad, let's get a junior. I want to go racing.
We're there, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Um, what was it like getting behind the wheel as a young kid, a very young kid?
Obviously me being me, I was pretty excited. Obviously it's pretty nerve-wracking because you know, you're just a little kid. I'm not even sure I was in first grade yet. I probably was about in first grade. But, see, obviously you're pretty young, so it's kind of, weird to, it's very cool though. It's when you first get into it, obviously it's kind of in a way it's scary, but I mean, obviously being a kid that grew up around it, I was just excited to get involved with it. So I really wasn't as scared as some other kids would. I know there's been some kids where like they they didn't want to start originally because they were scared of it, and then a couple of years after that first chance of getting in one, they go, you know what, I kind of want to try it now. But I was one of the kids that like as soon as I had the opportunity, like I want to get behind the wheel. So I
Mm.
wasn't as scared as some other kids have been, and I it was fun, to finally you know, growing up at the racetrack as much as I did, it was fun to get behind the wheel for the first time and be able to be like, hey, dad or uncles or, friends that are there, like, hey, I'm behind the wheel now. Like, I'm like, whether I'm racing with you or whether I'm not, I'm racing now. And we both get to share that. We're both racing at the same time.
Now, being a younger person, do you find that in the junior dragster program in the junior dragster group that it's different than most sports for young kids? You know, how you guys all relate to each other as compared to, say, you played baseball, football, hockey, whatever.
I mean, obviously, it is quite different because, a big part of it is that rather than, as you said, playing football or playing baseball. I played PB football growing up. I played that and started in third grade. It's a different experience, going from that to racing because when it comes to racing, I mean, you're all one big track family. You're all together like at a lot of the weekends out of the summer. But, when it comes to first round and after that, I mean, you're competing. Like you gotta, like when it comes to football, a lot of times the kids that you're facing you don't know, they're from other towns or they're from other states even. But when it comes to racing, I mean you're basically racing people that you have been growing up with like the past like couple years.
Right.
So it's kind of obviously that's one of the good things about traveling is that you get to race different people and get to especially with stuff like bracket finals, you get to race against people from other states and you get to compete and work as a team, like all the other sports. But, normally when you're at your home track, racing a point series, yeah, you're racing the same people over and over and over again that you've known for many years. And it's just kind of, you gotta find, I think it's kind of funny how we just find it so easy to slip into, going from friends to wanting to kill each other on the track. It's kind of
Right.
an interesting, you know,
Dynamic.
contrast.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know that, let's say you make your pass, you get to the top end, you pull off, your buddy could be broken. You could be broken. And everybody will dive right in to make sure that they're up and running for the next round, right?
Oh yeah, I've seen people where they've, someone broke apart and, the person that they were gonna face in the next round helped them out with it. I mean, it's just, no matter what, no matter, what the points look like, or no matter what the situation is, if someone breaks something or they need help in any way, people are going to help them as much as they can.
Right. So you've graduated from the juniors, correct?
Yes.
Any ambitions to get into either a door car or a big car or a dragster?
Oh, absolutely. I already have a '03 Danny Nelson chassis dragster that many people that are probably in the Facebook chat right now have been asking if it's going to be ready or not because I've had it for 2 years. So, there's obviously been, people have been asking me that question for the past year to 2 years. Like, hey, when are you going to get it out? We're going to start racing again. And I'm just like, everything is time, money, effort. I mean, it's easier. When I was a kid and everything, you saw people show up to the racetrack with all these dragsters, and you're like, oh wow, it must be really cool. But then you're you go home and my entire childhood, I wonder, why are they talking about how hard it is to run one of these cars? Why is it so much money and so hard? As a little kid, I didn't pay for anything on a race car, so I
Right.
didn't know anything. And then as soon as I got that, I'm like, yeah, I understand now. I understand why some people have to ditch it for a little bit to make sure that they can support their family and things like that. And why sometimes, people have to prioritize other things rather than racing. I mean, it's a lot of it's money, money, money.
Right. Yeah. Now that now that you're in your mid to late teens, you have a better grasp of what 25 to $50,000 for a motor really is.
Yeah,
Versus then you're like, I don't care, mom and dad are gonna pay for it. It's like whatever.
now it's I mean, obviously with trying to being just out of high school, getting my GED back in February, uh obviously being a teenager and being 17 still, I can't work full time. Much as I want to, I
Right,
legally can't. So
right,
money is always an issue for me, at least having my own money. Obviously, when it comes to buying things for the race car, my dad still helps a lot. But, it being my car and all this stuff, I try to chip in and I try to, when we're working on it, I'm trying to I'm trying to be helpful. I mean, obviously, unfortunately, I don't have as much as mechanic skills as I would like to, so I can't help with some things that he can do. But I try to help. Even if it's holding the flashlight, like every other kid did throughout their childhood. I mean, even then, it's like at least I'm helping. I'm doing something.
right. Learning new words, shall we say.
Oh my goodness! I mean, I mean, obviously being now into my late teens, I tend to use those words quite a bit when I'm working on my own things. I remember a situation last summer where I was home. I think it was like a Friday or something. It may have even been Fourth of July weekend. We were, working on, obviously I was out of school. My dad took the day off. So, we're both working on our stuff. Like he's working on whatever he's working on his trailer. I'm working on my car. I was putting in, because I'd gotten new seat belts from Pro One. I was putting them in my car and I'm like under the car, like twisted up, trying to get them in. And all of a sudden, my dad just hears a wrench thrown against the wall and a waterfall of obscenities just flying out of my mouth. And he walks up to my trailer door, the big one where the car comes out, obviously. And he goes, "That's my son," and then just walks away.
That's awesome.
There's never a dull moment in racing. There really
No,
isn't.
no, not at all. All right, so like I said, you graduated from the junior program. You've got a big car that you're getting together for whenever it's done and ready. How did you get involved in being an employee at New England Dragway?
Well, it started off in 2021, I want to say. I forget how it happened, but randomly I was up in the timing tower and the announcer, Bill, who's a great guy, shout out Bill, the announcer at New England Dragway, one of the other announcer at New England Dragway other than myself. He asked me because the juniors were coming up. I was out for the day because I'm not that great. But he asked me, "Hey, do you want to try announcing?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll try it." And the first time I was shy, and I mean, it wasn't that great, but you know, I liked it, and people were like, "You know what? For a first time, that ain't too bad." So, I kept trying and trying and trying and kept going up there and not to the juniors, and then it turned into, doing more classes and, doing full days. And then in 2023, actually it was late 2022 at the employee cookout, because I got invited to it, which was very nice of them. Uh, I asked, "Hey, at the time I was just turned 15. So I was like, "Hey, could I be an actual employee? And they said, yes. I was like, oh, cool. That's awesome. So the following April, put in, signed all my paperwork, did all that stuff, and I was an official employee.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah.
So at that time, what was it like knowing that during the summer, on the weekends, you were still going to be at your home, you weren't going to be racing, you were going to be actually part of the team?
It was pretty cool. I mean, I really, as soon as I started, doing that little bit of announcing, I always wanted to be an employee. I always wanted to be an official announcer for the racetrack. And, you know, that 15-year-old version of me was excited beyond belief that it was actually happening. So, knowing that, I was able to, 2023 was an interesting year because it was my final year in juniors and it was my first year as an employee. So I got to juggle doing both of those at the same time, which was as scary as it sounds. It was actually rather easy because they said, hey, racing first. Days where Bill isn't here. If you're racing, focus on racing first. Once you're done, once you're out, come up here and announce. But obviously, don't focus on that first, which is really cool because you know obviously I'm there to race and I want to win races and championships. And to be able to know that they're totally fine with, me being able to do both. And, knowing that they were behind me was just a huge, huge plus. So obviously once that season was over, it was a really awesome season. Obviously got to race my final year and I got to announce at the same time and be an official employee and work in ticketing as well. I mean, it was really just an awesome year all around. So going into 2024, last year and this year for that matter, I wasn't racing, so I got to focus on working and being an announcer and working in ticketing and credentials and doing all those things rather than, having to do both at the same time, which was by choice. But to be able to, focus on announcing and mainly announcing was really something that at the time sucked because I wanted to be racing, obviously, and I still want to, still very much want to. It was a huge plus because now there was nothing in the way of me being able to do that.
Cool. Now, obviously, you guys have the national event. This is going to be what, year 13 coming up, I think.
That sounds about right because the first one was 2013.
Yeah. All right. So even though you're underage, were you still able to work at the national event?
Yeah. Well, when it came to when it comes to what?
Being a track employee.
Yes. So as soon as I became an official employee, I've been doing ticketing as well as announcing. So obviously the past, other than this year, obviously, I did ticketing in the national event in 2013 and 14, I'm pretty sure, which was a pretty cool experience because as much as I wanted to be out in the stands watching, to be able to, see the reaction from people that, whether it be, seeing how, or maybe not just the reaction, but just seeing how excited they were to just be there. Walking in, just seeing people, holding their tickets and kids, running around and just excited to, go watch, you know, NHRA drag racing and, watch the pros come out and play at, my home track was just something that, I never really thought of, seeing as an employee, and to be able to see it was just really cool. Obviously I grew up going to the national event every single year. Every Friday of the national event, I wouldn't be at school. I'd be at the track watching. And, Obviously that's something, I saw as a kid was people being in the stands being excited about it, but to be able to, from an employee standpoint, watch people come in and, be happy to, pay hard-earned money to go watch something that I love so much as well was just really, really cool moment.
Did you get a chance to kind of see behind the scenes of how like Brian does his job week in and week out? Brian Loans?
Yeah, when it came to this year doing the national event on the mic for the first time, I was able to see that. I mean, honestly, I gotta say, the setup in the New England Dragway Timing Tower during the national event is small because the tower itself is tiny compared to some other tracks.
Yeah,
So,
that
they got,
that tower was built when I was a little kid going there.
yeah,
But I'm 56 now. So
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's one of the, at least on the circuit, it's one of the tinier towers. So, they got all these monitors and everything, not only in the front room where, Joe, Jason, any, Courtney or any guest person that comes in, and myself, obviously this year, that area. I mean, you don't only got all the announcers, but you got timing system. Speaking of timing system, shout out to my buddy Kevin Dunn, Reservoir Garage. Him and his dad own that garage in Massachusetts. You got him up there. You got, obviously Mike Rice, Mark Dawson. You got that entire team up there. I mean, it's tight quarters. It's small.
right,
So, to see that behind this, to see that was really cool because obviously I always thought, especially once I started to announce, what does it look like from up here during a national event? Like, what, you know, who's where, what does it look like? And honestly, one of the biggest things that shocked me was the fact that when it comes to the microphones, they wear headsets.
yep,
They don't use a microphone like I normally do during the weekends. They use headsets. So when I walked in on Friday morning and saw headsets with the whole setup of, the cough button and the on and off button was interesting because obviously I always used a microphone. The only other time I had seen that was when I got to do a tour into the trailer for NHRA on Fox that Brian Loans let me do, which was really cool. Thank you, Brian. That was the only other time that I saw those. Like, so I was surprised. I thought the entire weekend I'd be holding onto a microphone, which I was used to, and to walk in on Friday morning and be like, "Oh no, you're wearing a headset the entire weekend." was
right.
uh, an interesting thing to find out. Which honestly, I didn't mind it. It was kind of it. Obviously, it not being my normal thing that I'm used to was obviously interesting to adapt to. But obviously I'm a kid. I play video games. I'm used to a headset. It's
Right.
not too paranormal for me. So it was honestly that was one of the most interesting things about that entire thing was just learning that on Friday morning was I was going to be using that the entire weekend rather than a microphone. I seriously didn't even know that.
Cool. All right. So sticking with the national event theme, like I said, we're just coming out of year 12 of the national event in New England. Who is the coolest person that is there for a national event that you got the chance to talk to? You just talk to them or even interview them.
I would probably say a big thing that really shocked me was when President of NHRA Glenn Cromwell came up to the tower. That was really cool because obviously I had never met him. So to be able to meet, the man who was the boss of, a company that was the biggest company in my favorite sport and, what I love to do was just something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to meet him and to be able to do that. And, not only that, but he complimented me at the same time. And that's just, I texted my dad right after it happened. I was freaking out and I was so excited because I didn't expect that to happen.
Very cool. So, do you have any college plans?
Not at the moment, I don't.
What if you did, what do you think you would want to um major in? I asked this for a reason, and I'll
It
explain my reason after you answer.
it will probably be media and broadcasting, if anything, because that's what would benefit me.
I was gonna say either that or like sports marketing, something like that.
Yeah, that would also be a pretty good major to look into.
Cool. So, 17 years old, you've got roughly 4 years experience behind the mic. Have you looked at Brian yet and said, I'm gonna have your job someday?
I will say this one thing that has always been one compliment that I've always received since I started was, if you keep it up and keep doing well, you're going to take Brian Loans' job one day. And I've always laughed at that and found it funny. And, normally my response is I don't want to replace him. I want to work with him. I would obviously, you know, however many years down the line, if I happen to replace him, obviously that'd be pretty, sentimental to not only myself, but to him. But I would obviously, working with Brian at any point is just really cool. And if I got to do it for a job on a major sports network of FS1 or even when they go on Fox, that would just be insane.
Very cool. So, do you have any other automotive interests other than drag racing?
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of F1 and NASCAR. I watch them pretty good, follow them along on social media. I tend to like a lot of motorsports. It's kind of if anything has wheels or motor, I'm probably gonna be interested in it. From monster trucks, dirt bikes, all that stuff. I mean, if it even just a motor, if it has that, boats, anything. If it is anything that has to do with mechanical stuff, I love to watch it.
Very cool. So, you got the chance to travel around a little bit too with your junior, race at a few different tracks, or even go to spectate at a few different tracks. What is beyond New England? What is a track that you walked through the gates and you looked around and you said, "Wow, this place is cool."
Uh, Probably. Yeah, I've been to Lebanon a couple of times. I've only raced at Lebanon and New England. So it kind of that obviously narrows down the options when it comes to
Right.
racing, but I've been to a couple different tracks. I've been to Lebanon, obviously New England. I've been to Namibia when I was really young. I went to Englishtown when I was really young. And recently I went up to New Oxford Dragway in Maine and I announced up there. That's always been really cool. I think that's the second time I've gone up there to announce. It's honestly a really fun track to go to. I mean, obviously with it being an outlaw track, I mean, rules are, nowhere as strict as New England, which it not to say that rules are a bad thing, but to be able to go up to an outlaw track and see, how free everything is up there is pretty cool. But obviously, New England Dragway will always be home. It'll always be where I, am going to announce, and it's always going to be the place where I got my start. You know, but I would probably say that Oxford's up there just because of how fun it is and how great that team is up there. Especially Les Williams and his wife Jessica. They're really good up there. Their announcer Joanne, she's always been really nice and she's always been welcoming when I come up there. it's a very fun atmosphere.
Now, have you had the chance to go up to what is now Fernald Field?
I have not.
Right. As I'm sure you know, Crystal has taken it over. They've made a lot of improvements to their program, with my understanding. I It's a 4.5 hour drive for me, so it's a little tough for me to want to jump in the car and go all the way up to Maine. Um, but I will next year at some point. But I've heard nothing but great things about Fernald as well.
Yeah, I've known Russ and Crystal for a couple of years, so they're good people.
Yep, very cool. So, right, what's your favorite class to announce? Oh,
Oops, sorry.
still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Okay,
Uh, I mean, I would probably say one class I really like to announce is probably juniors. Just because obviously, especially at New England, I grew up racing with those kids. I grew up, even if those kids are newer and they, kind of just started as I was getting out or they started after I got out, being able to, announce them and know who they are and, not only that, but to be able to relate to what's happened during the race. This is something that I never will take for granted. I mean, obviously, I've only raced that and I've raced in street in a RAV4. So it's kind
right,
of hard to relate to Super Pro as much because I haven't raced in it yet. So I don't really, I have a pretty good knowledge of what's going on, but, you know, obviously I kind of know more about the juniors just because I raced in it, and, whenever you do something, you're not going to talk to as an example, you're not going to talk to Michael Jordan about what you have to do to be a great quarterback. You're going to talk to Tom Brady, or you're going to talk
right,
to Joe Montana.
right,
So, it's kind of having that knowledge of what's going down in the race and what the driver is thinking. It helps make it fun and informative for me because if I'm able to know what's going on and something happens, something breaks, I can probably pinpoint what that is because it's either happened to me or I've watched it happen.
right.
So, obviously, I'll probably say juniors just because it's the one that I know the most about from top to bottom.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Um, you did get a compliment from Mike Kilroy. I don't know if you know who Mike is. He works on a comp car, and he said, "Seth, you get nothing but compliments in the comp pits."
Yeah, I remember one of the latest Racers News Network shows, one of the recent lives that I was watching along on that Don Eccles, one of the comp racers up here
Yeah,
in D1 country, he up in our D1 country, he had said, hey, like you're doing a great job, like keep it up. So I always like receiving compliments because obviously it's nice to know that people appreciate what you're doing.
how does it make you feel that somebody who's made a fair number of laps in a lot of different tracks, on the East Coast or even around the country, recognizes what you do?
I mean, obviously it's very flattering. I mean, I've had people come up to me that have, said, either I've been to this many tracks or I've been going here for this many years and, you're the best one or one of the best ones I've ever heard. It's just obviously it's a very high compliment in my eyes because, if they've heard this, if they've heard these people and, I think of them as absolute, you know, some of the greatest of all time, knowing that those people, say that I could even, shine their shoes is just really cool.
Right. Cool. So, all right, we kind of touched on your favorite class, obviously juniors, but pushing juniors off to the side, What is a class that you like to announce, but it just drives you absolutely insane to try to figure it out? I know what mine would be.
Mine used to be comp because
That's mine.
it's
I love comp. I love everything about comp. There's nowhere else on the planet you can get a screaming four cylinder lined up next to a double A Pro mod.
yeah. I mean, some of the. I mean, I remember at the divisional just month and a half back or so. Brandon Miller was racing his pro stock car in comp. I mean,
Right.
that's just something that you don't really get to see every day. So, you know, comp has always been one of the ones that, especially before I started announcing, before I started understanding it better, when I was a kid, I had no idea what the heck was happening. I had no idea what any of it meant. I thought the classifications on the window was just gibberish. I didn't understand what all of it meant. And now that and when I started announcing, when I first announced a round of comp, I mean, I tried to. Oh, my phone died.
We lost him for a minute. He'll be back. If anybody has any questions for Seth, please feel free to put it in the comments and I will make sure to shout it out to him when he returns. Like I said, Pete's not going to be on with us tonight. He's getting ready to go take a quick vacation to Florida, so he's working late tonight. While we're waiting, let's check Drag Race Central and see how things are going in Texas for the Jags All Stars, if they have anything posted. And I do not see anything. So let me send a text to Division One and see what he has available for what's going on in Texas, if he has anything. And also, don't forget, we are coming up to the last divisional. Going to be at Cecil County, and that will be also the last guessing game for 2025. Want to send a big shout out to Mass Traction for being our partner again. Um, they hopefully will be back with us next year. Um, it's a good time doing that, and people seem to enjoy it. So let's see if Mr. Rhodes gets back to me. Because I know Frank Volpe, he's not there. Was going into third round in Super Street. Let's poke around and see what we can find. All right. Last update I see was Frank Volpe, the third, making it to third round. So we're gonna sit tight for just a few minutes and see if Seth makes it back. Seth is actually going to be joining us in just a moment. His phone died. There he is.
There we go.
There you are.
I didn't know it, but my phone
You
cord
gotta
wasn't
be
working.
prepared, young man.
Yeah, I didn't know that the socket on my wall was not charging my phone well enough, so I had to go out to the car.
All right, no problem. So,
Ah, it's unfortunate.
all right, looking down the road with your car, what are your plans with your new dragster? Are you gonna run Super Comp, Super Pro, maybe a little bit of both?
Mainly Super Pro. I'm thinking about running Super Comp. Obviously, it's a you know, it's a thought to run Super Comp. I'm not sure if I want to or not, just because you know my plan is to kind of run points days in Super Pro and then the rest of the days and announce at the track. So running Super Comp is a thought, but it's not something that I'm 100% saying I want to run Super Comp and I'm gonna run Super Comp. It's maybe I do it, maybe I don't.
Right. Okay. So to kind of wrap things up a little bit, look in that big bubble of your that is Seth Noble's future. What do you see?
Well, I see hopefully a career in announcing it, and not only and hopefully NHRA. That's something that I see in there. Obviously that's still that I don't know how far away. Oh my God, phone died again. Dude, what is happening with my phone right now?
He's gone again. All right, let's sit. Like I said, we'll sit tight for a few minutes. Let him get his phone figured out. Actually, also while we're waiting, if there's anybody that would like to add a little something something, the hats, t-shirts, whatever, to the year-end guessing game for Racers News Network Live. I kind of like to try and make it a bonus guest program for the last event of the year. So if anybody would like to throw something in, just hit me up on Facebook and figure out a way to get it, whether you mail it to me or whatever. Um, so like I said, last year we had a bunch of stuff, um, bunch more stuff donated above and beyond everything that Mass Traction gives us. So Oh, it's gonna rain tomorrow. Look, granted, we need it. Um, like I said, we're gonna hang tight, wait, see if Seth can get his phone figured out. Let me look again and see if I can find anything for information about Texas. Have the run list for today. Let's see. Live video doesn't do me a whole lot of good. Unfortunately, not seeing much other than the live video. All right, how about a big shout out to Shelby Racing, Dayton Chicaro, wrapped up his final year in the junior dragster program at the big event this past weekend in Epping. Um, oh, and he's back.
I'm telling you, this phone cord's gonna get thrown away after this. I'm just about done with this thing. Oh my
All right.
goodness.
All right. So let's
Not
set
once, but twice.
right the big bubble.
Mhm.
You're looking into the big picture of your future as a young man. What do you see?
Um, Once again, I see, NHRA just
The, all right. So like I said, Dana Chicaro, Shelby Racing wrapped up his final race at New England Dragway as a junior with an impressive run in the finals and earned the MVP award belt along the way. Got a couple more races left this season and focus on finishing his junior career strong and then see what the future brings for that young man. All right, Seth just messaged me. He's still having trouble with his phone. So what I think we're going to do is call it a night, and want to thank him for taking the time to come on and hang out with us and learn a little bit more about his past and his. Oh, he's going to try one more time. Do, 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 do. I don't know if anybody noticed or not, but I redid the background. I have this new app on my phone thanks to my lovely wife. And yes, it's cartoony, and a lot of the stuff I've been working on this week is kind of cartoony, but I like it. I think it looks cool, and that's all that matters is that I like it. So, all right, let's like I said, we're gonna sit tight for a minute here, see what happens. Joining us next week is going to be Rob Keister from Mid Atlantic Super Series. Going to be wrapping up his season with all the results and points and champions. So looking forward to that. Probably one of the best run series on the East Coast. And I'd like to also send a shout out to my neighbor, Jamie Blake. Yes, that Jamie Blake. He's helping me out doing the brakes on my wife's car for me since I am no longer able to do stuff like that. He's going to take care of that for me tomorrow night. So thank you very much to Jamie Blake. I appreciate it. Actually, you know what? Let's do something. Have a little fun. He's not answering any of those. Trying to call Pete, see if he had any updates for Texas. All right, gang. I think we're gonna call it a night. Like I said, we'll be back next Tuesday night, 7 o'clock, with Rob Keister from Mid Atlantic .90. I really want to thank Seth for coming on, hanging out, learning a little bit more about him, his job at the track, his racing past, and what he hopes for his racing future. Have a great night, everybody, and we will talk to you all next week.